to your very exciting and enlightening program, Consumer Watch on Redeem FM 94.7 Abuja. This is a program that's set to educate you and inform you about your rights in the consumer space. Over the last quarter, in the last 13 weeks, we have dealt with several issues that relate to your consumer rights and how you can enforce your right in the marketplace. And today we are going to be doing a review of what we have discussed so far in the last quarter. You recall that one of the very first topic we dealt with in Consumer Watch is electricity tariff and billing disputes. Electricity tariff and billing dispute. We discussed about how consumers are billed, both metered and unmetered consumers, and the possible dispute that arises from billing in Nigeria. We also talked about our second topic on Consumer Watch. This quarter was food safety in Nigeria, and we talked about understanding GMOs, genetically modified organism, and your right to food safety. We also under that topic we talked about food adulteration, and there we were privileged to have an assistant director from NAFDAC who delved and looked at all the issues surrounding food adulteration, what we should know about genetically modified food in Nigeria. Recall that third topic in Consumer Watch was tenancy right and housing dispute. Here we extensively discussed the right of a tenant in the house. We also, in that engagement, we talked about the right of the landlord, the responsibility of the landlord. We looked at the issue that relates to whether or not a landlord can take laws into his hands. A tenant that is recalcitrant, a tenant that is not paying, can a landlord come and remove his roof? Can a landlord put chippings in his house? So we looked at all those issues when we talked about tenancy right and housing dispute. You recall also our fourth topic was banking and your money. And under banking and your money, we talked about the insider trading. We talked about failed transaction. We talked about the things that goes wrong when an insider collaborate with an outsider to defraud the system. Also, that topic we looked at it from two angles. We also talked about banking and your money part 2, where we talked about banking charges, USSD charges, whether those charges are legitimate or whether those charges are not legitimate. We talked about what you call bank maintenance charge, USD charge. We talked about VAT. We talked about security levy charge on transactions. And we say, these charges, do they amount to multiple levies and multiple charges? So we looked at all those issues extensively under banking charges. Then we also looked at credit and digital lending, and you know it's a common place in Nigeria where you have all the consumer lending apps that becomes like a Sherlock that are abusing the rights of Nigerians, but particularly right to privacy. You borrow a certain amount of money from a loan app, you could not meet up with the payment terms, and you see scandalous stories on social media calling you names that you are not. So we delved extensively into that topic, and we discussed it, the right of consumers, what a consumer should know when he borrows money, and the limit to which the lending app can go. What are the limits they can go? So that was what we discussed extensively in our week 6 on Consumer Watch. We also on week 7 talked about e-commerce and online purchasing, and there we talked about what I bought or what I ordered for versus what was supplied. Extensively, we also discussed the kind of gimmicks that online entrepreneurs now engage in. they package something in a very attractive manner online, make it attractive for buyer to get involved. When this buyer gets involved and make purchases, at the end of the day, what is supply is different from what demand claims. And we looked at the rights of the buyer. Can the buyer refund? Can the buyer get back his money? So we discussed extensively those rights. Then we talked about flying with confidence in Nigeria, passengers' rights. I mean, that topic was a bomb. We talked about the right of passengers here in Nigeria. We looked at the NCAA regulation, right? We looked at it extensively. The right to, when there is cancellation of flight, what are your rights? When there is delay in flight, what are your rights under the Nigerian law? And we say that there are very copious regulations about the rights of consumers or passengers flying our airspace. We looked at it. We say whether those our airspace, are they safe for flying? Are they safe? Why do we have incessant flight cancellation? Why do we have incessant flight delays? And what are the remedies? And you recall we talked about the case of the week there, Alibaba versus Dana Airline, where we talked about a passenger that lost her life on an aircraft owing to the accident of the airline, and deceased estate sued the airline, and the court did awarded extensive damage for that family. So I mean, we discussed those issues extensively. And in our week 9, we talked about private housing developers and sharp practices. And I mean, this was also a very, very interesting topic that engaged the public. In Abuja and many urban cities in Nigeria, we noticed that the menace of sharp practices owing to what these housing developers do is so high. Is so high that housing developers engage in sharp practices. They just give you bogus promises. Oh, we're going to deliver this, we're going to deliver that, we're going to give you so within so period, but they end up not delivering. In that, during when we discussed that topic, we looked extensively at the rights of subscribers. If you are subscribed to housing development, what are your rights? We looked at the rights of a subscriber. What are the remedies? What does he where does he have so-called on? Then in our week 10, our 10th week, we looked at data depletion and unsolicited message. And I mean, this was also one of the trending issues we discussed, data depletion, that extensively we engaged the public that who measures your data? Who is the policeman that approves your 20 gig as 20 gig? You have subscribed for 20 gig from a network provider. How are you sure that your 20 gig that was given to you is actually 20 gig? So, dear listeners, we looked at that issue very extensively, and we say NCC must be on its toes in trying to regulate the service provider and acting as the independent ombudsman that will help the Nigerian public, particularly the helpless subscribers that or phone users that buys data today, the next day your 20 gig is no more, and yet you have not subscribed to any online app or anything. You just notice that the data are depleting very fast. Something is eating up the data. What is eating up the data? And so we engage NCC extensively on these issues, that it is unheard of that NCC are not doing much as they should in measuring and policing the service providers on the adequate or the inadequacy of the data they provide for Nigerian consumers. In that topic also, we talked about unsolicited message. And I mean, that speaks to the case of the week for that week, Anene versus MTN, right? Mr. Anene continued getting unsolicited message, and that infringed on his right to privacy. We looked at the case of the week in that dealing with that topic where Mr. Anene had to sue MTN. He had to sue MTN for the breach of his right to privacy, and the court agreed with him and awarded damages on his behalf. Then we talked about buying a faulty product or faulty goods, your right to return, to repair and refund. I mean, this is what also was one of the topics that engaged the general public extensively, that every consumer that patronizes or buy goods have right to refund, have right to repair, and have right to return. These 3 R's are the R's that are embedded, like what we used to call implied terms in our contract of sale. Any goods or service you are buying, there's an implied terms that goods or service is fit for purpose, that you are buying it for. And in the event that what you are buying is not fit for purpose, I mean, you can repair it. I mean, the seller of the goods is under an obligation to repair. Okay, if the repair is not working, you can do a return. And in extreme case, you can do what we call a refund. We advise critically looking at that topic that, in fact, replacement is usually better. What we call replacement, right? Because some goods or service that you have paid for, because of inflation in our system, at the time you are asking for a return, the money is not the actual money that you paid at the inception. We cited the example of when you subscribe for a 3-duplex house. You subscribe for the house maybe January 2024 for the sum of 20 million naira. At the end of 2024, the developer cannot deliver that house to you, and you are asking for a return. If you ask for your 20 million naira, you are at loss, because inflation has caught up with your 20 million naira. Your 20 million naira in 2024 perhaps is not the same thing again in 2025. And so it's very important that our listeners and consumers know the right they have, that there are situations you will ask for a repair, there are situations you ask for a return. In extreme cases is where you can ask for a refund. This is very, very important. And lastly, we discussed the healthcare service delivery in Nigeria and the rights of patients. And we talked about your right to confidentiality, right to consent, and right to emergency care. And we looked extensively at National Healthcare Act, right? National Healthcare Act. And we looked at the consent, I mean, in 2 categories. We say there is informed consent, right? And there is normal consent, right? So these are the topics we have discussed in the last 13 weeks in this quarter.